So we continue with an interesting article by F Meijer, and we are now looking into neurobiology, how that translates into this context. The state of art is the name of this paragraph. Whereas the previous section considers quantum theories as a tool to describe or understand mental or cognitive processing, this and the following section discusses the idea that the physical concepts do physically apply to the mind. The mental domain is considered as an aspect of wave information. A special position takes the feature of superposition. Quantum particles can be present in multiple spatial locations or states and be described by one or more pure state wave functions, simultaneously, of which a single state can be finally selected. Penrose 89 suggested that the underlying space-time geometry in fact bifurcates during the superposition process, and wave collapse occur in a non-computable manner. Because of the property of quantum coherence, individual individual wave/particle lose their separate identity and form a unity that can be described by the single wave function. These concepts are considered the hard quantum theories as opposed to the soft or formal theory of the previous section. Quantum mechanics adherents refer often to Wolfgang Pauli, the eminent quantum scientist, who suggested that the mental and the material domain are governed by a common ordering principles, and should be understood as complementary aspects of the same reality. The hard mental quantum mechanical theories apply either to specific brain structures, molecules, or to quantum fields and dimensions. Tarlacci and Vanini listed and attempted to categorize the various published quantum brain models without a detailed treatment of the individual models. Vanini and Di Corpo distinguish models based on consciousness creating reality, models based on probability aspects of quantum mechanics, and models based on already established quantum mechanical coherence and models of the relation of quantum mechanics with consciousness that can include materialistic modes, that is, consciousness emerges from material brain, dualistic mind-matter models, and panpsychist modes. The first two papers emphasize the potential testability of various models. More detailed reviews can be found in Pereira, Turzhinsky and Wolff, the latter as an introductory chapter of the instructive book Emerging Physics of Consciousness, while an excellent and critical overview of the field is provided by Atmansbacher. A number of more or less specific scientific journals are currently or were devoted to the subject neuroquantology, quantum biosystems, mind and matter, and antimatter. An important website is Quantum Mind. Before we delve into the physical aspects of the quantum brain, a number of common misunderstandings on quantum modeling should be dealt with. There is no single theory of quantum mechanical aspects of brain function. In fact, a spectrum of more or less independent models have been proposed that all have their intrinsic potential problems. In spite of the introduction already in the first part of the 20th century and the spectacular successes of the theory ever since, some still see quantum physics as a sort of esoteric part of science. However, it rather represents a revolutionary refinement of classical physics. For example, taking into account that the theory was required in order to build an adequate atomic model, and more recently, to explain experimentally demonstrated teleportation of particles. See Zeilinger 2000. Zeilinger, who is also to receive the Nobel Prize as of the 10th of December this year in Stockholm. As well as principles of downward causation, Wheeler 2002, and time symmetry, see Aharonov 2010. It is also the basis for laser, semi and superconductance, and microchip technology, as well as MRI brain imaging. It should also be kept in mind that classical physics can be fully derived from quantum physics, not the other way around. Quantum physics is by some rejected, since so many interpretations of the theory are at stake. Copenhagen, many worlds, implicate order, interactional theory, macro scale definition, environmental decoherence, relational quantum mechanics, etc. Last one coming from Carlo Rovelli. Yet a number of common elements, such as the true particle wave aspects, instead of only a probability function, superposition, entanglement/non-locality, and coherence-decoherence phenomena are experimentally established and remain very usable in practice. although the related semantics should be carefully defined. It is often stated that quantum wave information coherence cannot be maintained long enough in the brain due to interaction with the macro environment of the brain components. Yet on this point, major differences in the coherence time calculations exist, as based on various models and their intrinsic assumptions. A central point here is that subcompartments could be presented at the molecular or submolecular level, that by their special arrangements are quantum noise protected or coherence stabilized. Examples are internal parts of channel proteins and stabilization by clustered arrangements of cytoplasmic water clusters. And the last one is obviously Hameroff-Penrose. The latter authors proposed a hierarchical model encompassing nerve cell depolarization, gel-sol transitions of resulting in disconnections of microtubuli, shape volume pulsation of dendrites, including reorganization of synaptic contacts, and finally sol-gel transition stabilizing a new state. Through coherence and macroscopic entanglement, lifetime of wave information can be much longer than in the classical phase as a consequence of coherence, decoherence, dynamic equilibria, allowing non-local remote interaction in large numbers of entangled neurons. Such gel-sol oscillations could even be a primer to excitation, depolarization triggered by normal sensory stimuli, and are supposed to interact with zero-point vacuum dipole vibrations. It should be realized that decoherence does not imply deconstruction of information, since firstly, it is not compatible with the quantum principles of non-cloning and non-deletion. Secondly, a cyclic process of decoherence and recoherence processes cannot be excluded. While thirdly, even if such decoherence does occur, it may result in mixture of possibilities that may be accommodated by the collection of perceivable worlds in the brain. And the last one is from Stapp. Decoherence may even be preferred above wave function collapse as a means of processing information. It has been proposed by Vetai and Kaufman 2012 that a decoherent state can be converted back to a coherent state by the input of adequate phase and amplitude information. The resulting coherent states can last long enough in warm biological systems in order to, for example, enable coherent search processes for antenna-mediated transport of photon energy in photosynthesis. The author postulates that similar poised realm or microdomains on the edge of chaos could also be instrumental in human brain as sites where dynamic interplay of decoherence and recoherence also the model proposed in section 8 is often assumed that quantum mechanics is only valid for a description of nature on the micro scale, elementary particles and etc. as examples. Yet convincing evidence was more recently presented that quantum physics can be applied to macromolecules, coming from Seilinger once more, and to the surprise of many, even can occur in warm and wet biological systems, photosynthesis, and brains of birds in relation to magnetic sensing and navigation. For reference, see Arndt et al. The last one is, of course, the Red Robin. Lloyd concluded, 2011, quantum coherence plays a strong role in photosynthetic energy transport and may also play a role in the avian compass and sense of smell. In retrospect, it should come as no surprise that quantum coherence enters in biology. Biological processes are based on chemistry, and chemistry is based on quantum mechanics. In retrospect, it should come as no surprise that quantum coherence enters into biology. Biological processes are based on chemistry, and chemistry is based on quantum mechanics. If an organism can attain an advantage in reproduction, however slight, by putting quantum coherence to use, then over time natural selection has a chance to engineer the necessary biochemical mechanisms to exploit that coherence. Different types of quantum processes that operate at the same timescale can interact strongly either to assist or to impede one another. In photosynthetic energy transfer, the convergence of quantum timescales give rise to more efficient and robust transportation. Evolved biological systems exhibit the quantum Goldilocks effect. Natural selection pushes together timescales to allow quantum processes to help each other out. A spectrum of atoms molecules has been suggested to operate in a quantum manner. Calcium 2+ and Kalium+ ions, H2O, enzymes, membrane receptors, channel proteins, membrane lipids, neurotransmitter molecules, in addition to macromolecular structures such as DNA, RNA gap, junctions, presynaptic vesicles, microtubules, and microfilaments. Since our integral universe can be described by current laws of quantum mechanics and relativity, it does not seem warranted to place the human brain outside nature. Some even see cosmic architecture mirrored in our complex brain. The discussion around higher brain functions is frequently obscured by modalities of promissory materialism. At present, we do not understand consciousness, but within 20 years, the problem will be resolved. Not only is such an extrapolation scientifically unwarranted, but certainly cannot be falsified. Even more damaging is the assumption that one will find the solution by further using current technology instead of postulating new, for example, quantum models and innovative experimental approaches. Some quantum models are based on the interaction of brain components with experimentally detected quantum fields. The central aspects of realistic quantum field theory hold that the essence of material reality is a set of fields. These fields obey the principles of special relativity and quantum theory, and the intensity of a field at a point gives the probability for finding its associated quanta as the fundamental particles that are observed by experimentalists. These fields may holographically project into each other, implying interactions/interpenetrations of their associated quantum waves. Vitiello proposes a virtual shadow brain working in a time reverse mode that stabilizes coherence and neural memory structures. It could be worthwhile to project neo-Darwinism and its biological evolution theories against the canvas of potential quantum mechanisms, in the sense that parallel quantum superposition and backward causation mechanism can provide explanations and or alternatives for evolution jumps, and so-called emergent phenomena. Well, here we can put Stephen Jay Gould's The Cambrian Explosion, a punctual event, I think he called it. Recently, models were proposed for the transfer of information in biological evolution on the basis of quantum formalism. On the basis of quantum mechanical concepts, one should be prepared to envision uncommon and even utterly strange manifestation of quantum entanglement, certain transpersonal human experiences. Should not be seen as potentially explained by quantum mechanics, but rather required by the concept that our world is part of a quantum universe. Quantum mechanics and higher brain functions. Here we explore the hard quantum mechanic theories as possible theories bridging the classical neuronal and mental concepts. Quantum mechanics theories does indeed apply to the same brain physiological phenomena, but introduce also typical features such as particle-wave duality, entanglement, and non-locality, as well as wave interference and superposition. In addition, processes such as quantum coherence and resonance of wave interactions are at stake. Here we have a depiction, figure 5, that illustrates some of these hard quantum brain concepts. It is not our purpose to assess the various quantum mechanical theories in detail. Rather, we intend to discuss some of their major implications regarding the concept of a quantum brain. The key position of proteins in the quantum-mediated initiation and execution of mental activities was already emphasized. Several quantum mechanical theories are based on specific properties of proteins, as for instance microtubular proteins, involved in facilitating synaptic transmission, including calcium 2+ channels, CSTAP, as well as a specific channel proteins instrumental in initiation and propagation of action potentials. Quantum mechanical theories also extends the mind to different spaces and time dimensions, and some consider the individual mind partly as an expression of a universal mind through holonomic communication with quantum fields. In the latter approach, the human brain is conceived as an interfacing organ that not only produces mind and consciousness, but also receives information necessary for full deployment of these mental phenomena. The central question here is whether neuronal cells are the sole units for information processing in the brain rather than subcellular organelles or molecules. Well, here we have a whole list, including pre-Brahm, I recognize Penrose, Hanroth, Bohm, Goswami, Josephson, Pitkänen, maybe his friend to Pylkinen. As mentioned in section 5, a major debate about these theories concerns the possibility of coherent quantum states in the warm and wet internal milieu of the brain. The defenders of quantum brain models have argued that in vivo molecular configurations exists that enable the modulation of quantum states through efficient protection and shielding of the wave interaction compartments in the cells. The particularly local collapse of the wave function in this manner produces new information. As originally proposed by Eccles, this is realized by membrane protein induced fluxes of calcium 2+ or kalium+ ions that then increase the probability of fusion of neurotransmitter filled vesicles in the synapses, leading to the firing of a particular neuron or even groups of neurons. The central hypothesis here is that synaptic transmission represents a typical quantum probability state in which the total number of vesicles available for exocytosis is critical for an all or non-response of neural firing. Coherent neural perturbations, and especially their entangled state, are supposed to provide non-local binding of sensory and cognitive brain centers, and may also enable perception of qualia and the unitary sense of a conscious self. As the mesoscopic scale of brain activity, where the binding process is expected to occur, is in the vicinity of the quantum domain, the binding principle is likely to be a quantum non-local effect, probably the only known physical mechanism able of performing such a task. One possibility is the formation of a quantum photonic field. Another possibility is the formation of coherent states on the level of transmembrane ion fluxes, such as that of calcium 2+, as suggested by Pereira. Hameroff and Penrose argue against mechanisms of all or non-firing of axonal potentials, as suggested by Beck and Eccles, since such binary states do not include nonlinear and not computable characteristics of consciousness. They rather prefer the model of Davis, proposing that consciousness is related to traveling waves in the brain as a uniting life principle on multiple scales. The latter is based on energy dissipation, enzyme catalysis, protein folding that maintains energy balance in an excitable system such as the brain, conditions that are also compatible with the present isoenergetic model. Nonlinearity in brain processes is modeled using the very well-known Schrödinger equation, adjusted with a nonlinear term as proposed earlier by Walker, by which robustness of the classical approach is combined with the more flexible elements of quantum theory. The originators of this hypothesis, Penrose and Hameroff, have discussed that microtubule in principle can maintain quantum states lasting at least 10 to -6 seconds, long enough to be instrumental in the transfer of quantum wave information. Such lasting quantum states are possible because of the shielding of hydrophobic pockets in the particular proteins, as well as the formation of coherent clusters of these molecules that thereby share a common quantum wave function, the so-called Bose-Einstein condensates. There is indirect evidence that microtubules may be relevant for neurocognition, increased synthesis in relation to postnatal development with regard to synaptogenesis and visual learning, and as a counterpart, aging deficits in memory, as well as interactions with general anesthetics. Yet such correlative studies should not only be further substantiated with experiments that show quantum states in isolated tubules, as reported by Bandyopadhyay, but rather, and most importantly, directly demonstrate tubular involvement in higher brain functions in situ. In conclusion, tubular and synaptical channel proteins exhibit conformational transitions within 10 to -9 seconds that may last for 10 up to -6 seconds or even longer. These perturbations may last long enough to be finally detected as miniature neuronal potentials. The particular mechanisms also imply a manifestation of non-local quantum effects due to distant coherence. A phenomenon that was even recorded in laser-stimulated neural cell cultures, in which classical physical explanations were excluded. The coherence of such quantum states among brain proteins has been suggested to lead to material changes in brain physiology through orchestrated collapse of quantum coherent clusters of tubulin proteins triggered by quantum gravity expressed at the spin level. On the basis of a recent theory on the nature of gravity, postulating that gravity is not a force, but rather an entropic compensation for the movement of mass information. The first author speculated that gravity may represent a reaction on the entropic displacement of information as it occurs in high density in the human brain. Anyhow, there should be a mechanism to integrate signal processing within a single neuron with other, even distant neurons, and consequently non-local effects due to quantum entanglement should play a role in this case. These quantum processes may explain phenomena such as qualia, meaning, sensation of unity, intentionality, as well as conflict solving, reliability in the sense of correspondence with the outer world, and the sense of self. The latter is related to the feeling of causal power that could result from a quantum classical interface in which the classical synaptic processes create a quantum coherent state that enables quantum computation that exert a back influence on the original synaptic process. The existence of non-locality in brain functioning being a basic property of the universe strongly argues for an underlying deep reality out of space/time as originally proposed by Bohm in the form of an implicate order. Bohm claimed that these mechanisms also play a role in different forms of transpersonal and extrasensory perceptions by wave resonance with an universal quantum field. And we have one name I recognize is Subhash Kak. Can recommend him as well. The main issue of the present essay is that wave information provides a potential coupling to mental processes. For instance, wave information could be transmitted from and into the brain by wave resonance and may locally collapse to matter entities through conscious observation, including sufficient individual attention and intention. Stapp argued recently that this does not represent an interference effect between the superposed states as assumed by Hameroff and Penrose, but through an environmental decoherence, superpositions will be converted to multiple mixtures of information. Since our brain contains a large collection of perceivable worlds, it is able by supercausal free choice and some subsequent common random choice to make a fit which one or more of the above-mentioned mixed information modalities. The particular waves then spread out and rapid sequence repetitions, the so-called Zeno effect, may sufficiently maintain coherence in parts of the brain. Of note, Stapp does not see free will as based on quantum probability aspects. He states, in the original Copenhagen formulation, this EXA process is initiated by what is called a free choice on the part of the experimenter. The phrase free choice emphasizes the fact that while a definite particular choice is needed, this choice is not determined by any known law or rules. The purely physical aspects of the theory have, therefore, a significant causal gap, which opens the door to a possible causal input from the mental side of reality, from the mental into the material. Quantum information may exert physical effects via a bottom-up flow of information starting at spin networks that can be passed on as waveforms of elementary particles, atoms, to be ultimately expressed at the level of neuronal molecules. We consider the latter flow of information more feasible than being directly transferred through vibratory interference at the molecular level. According to this integral quantum model, perturbations at the various spatiotemporal domains allow both time, symmetric forward and backward causation, and therefore top-down influence on quantum fields. The basic question is, how are quantum waves or quantum fields finally perceived by the human brain, and how they influence or even induce phenomena as self-consciousness? Organisms do indeed visually receive photons that exhibit wave-particle duality. Humans even sense less than 10 photons, whereas insects may even detect a single photon. Sensitive detection is possible with delineated cellular structures, as for instance in the mammalian retina, that amplify the energy of a single photon by a cascade of processes based on changes of protein conformations, cellular potential energies, leading to the electrochemical stimulation of neurons projecting to the brain. Recently, photosensitive proteins have been coupled to ion channel proteins with biotechnical techniques so that the neural activity can be modified or inhibited in vivo by light introduced via an optic microfiber. These experimental approaches demonstrate that quantum effects may directly affect neural function, but it remains to be shown more definitely that this also does occur directly inside the human brain, as it was demonstrated in the brain of birds. For further information, see Arndt et al. Or Lloyd 2011. I think we round up there. I say thank you very much. I'm just going to make a short summary. Well, this goes to show that the ones trying to stop this turnover into the quantum mechanical side are most definitely conservators of an ancient idea. It doesn't seem in any way even vaguely likely that there could be a chance that the human brain or even human beings could be something else than quantum mechanical. Why would not evolution use quantum mechanics during these eons of development? Why, for some reason, just because Isaac Newton existed, would they follow Newton rather than quantum mechanics? Doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And it's at the same time incredibly easy to see how well established this thinking is in our world. Even how we make what rationality is, what logic is based on the Newtonian / Aristotelian thinking of either or only, and not either and or. The more inclusive thinking is the one of quantum mechanics. So even the conclusions we make are already, so to speak, made in the classical mode. And therefore there is no wonder whatsoever that this isolationist ideas that for some reason the human beings or the mammalian beings would be excluded from quantum mechanics. They would have like a free card in Monopoly, not having to be quantum mechanical, so they can easily fit into what our tradition is. It seemed to be the message, these things should follow our tradition, and that there is no reality, it's just our subjective tradition that decides what is correct or not. I don't agree at all, and I really say this is ludicrous. This needs to be stopped here in the crib before it continues to have its force upon science and the thinking. And this could be parallel what already shown by Paul Feyerabend. Already within quantum, within classical physics, there is a downputting and a lack of understanding that even classical physics is not coherent with itself. Thermodynamics, hydrodynamics, and electromagnetics do not fit the classical concept, and they do not fit ordinary thinking. And since these scientists of cognition usually use ordinary thinking, something they picked up from the street, inherited as they grew up, learned in education, have, and I think this is important, have in their bodies, because our bodies are attuned to the either-or situation. We do not encompass, we do not embrace either and or. No, we try via attention. We're the first mammalian and the only mammalian that tenses. We try with our tensions to keep one side only. And we defy reality. Quantum mechanics show to reality, and there are still people, well, I say the majority, that defies reality as it is. And of course that will, as Paul Feyerabend has mentioned in his books, stop science or hinder it. It will put a blindfold on science, will make science institutionalized, it will make it much less creative, which is shown. We do not make the same development in the same speed anymore. And why should we stop 1970? With the classical physics we had 1970, that should be reality. Why? There's no reasons, because these things has never been carefully thought about. I say thank you very much and have a very pleasant afternoon. Bye bye for now.